The Grappling Hour is brought to you by BioPro Plus, the faster, easier, and safer non-synthetic alternative to painful anti-aging and hormone treatments. You do this a lot. Now, I can't do it the way that you do it, but this is the pose that you go with.
The tall flex.
Yeah, what is that? And why are you looking like a jacked up Diaz brother? What is up, everybody? It is your friendly neighborhood BJJ podcaster, Rav Esparza, coming to you with another great installment of Grappling Hour. We have an excellent episode up for you today, but we'll get to our guest in a second. And he knows we have issues right now, and I feel bad because he's in a green room. He could leave. He could. So I don't know if he will because, again, I have words to be had with this man, but we'll get there in a second. I just reminding you guys, if you can like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, it's always very helpful to the channel, but even more helpful for that, if you actually want to become a member of the Grappling Hour family, all you have to do is go over to HY.PAGE/Grappling Hour, and you can get early access to our interviews, which means interviews like this, 30 days before anybody else. And I'm telling you, it's good stuff. Plus, if you want to pay that little extra good, you can see really exclusive content like an episode that we are about to shoot with our guest here after we do this interview, where we will do a tape study of one of his matches. Guess which one? It's not hard. There's a pretty prominent one. But if you want to hear more about the technique and the breakdown of that, go find us, HY.PAGE/Grappling Hour. All right. This guest, why do I have beef with him? He was on recently. I don't tend to beef with a lot of people. That might not be true, but I don't tend to have issues with people who are super nice, super Canadian, but I do with this guy. Here's the issue. In his most recent fight, which he won, which congratulations, all do, we talked, and I like to give people their space, and I say, hey, why don't we try and figure out something here? Why don't we try and do a follow-up interview? And he's like, absolutely. And then I see this slut appear not once, but twice on Ariel Helwani's show in the time that it has taken him to show up here. Now, here's the thing. Ariel Helwani, they didn't need him. He's good. Once was fine. Twice I said, wow, that's insulting. And yet here he is today. I want to tell you, it's only partially hurtful when you see somebody as good as Aaron Jeffrey who goes on those kind of shows. But I ask you, Aaron Jeffrey, do we have beef? Are we okay? Where are we right now, sir?
I think we're good. You know, Ariel's show, it's not as big as yours. He doesn't have quite the following. So I kind of wanted to do him a favor and help him get some more followers, get some more eyes on his show. So I did that for him.
It's so funny how quickly I will turn from, man, I would love to see him on Ariel's show, to, okay, that's good. Yep. All right. That's enough there. He's already appeared. Don't call him again. And it looked like you guys hit it off. What did it feel like to go on that show and to get that experience? Because it is a fun thing, especially when you win. It is nice to get that call and that note like, hey, we're actually interested in booking you. And I know that you would put up a story that said like, hey, it'd be kind of cool to be on there. Yeah, man. It was cool. It was very surreal. Like I've been watching his show for a long time, like probably 10 years, like since he first started doing it. So, to be watching the show and then hear him start talking about me and introducing me was pretty surreal. Good for you. I was actually very happy about that, aside from petty squabbles aside. The second appearance, terrible circumstances, but you were the right person to be brought on for that, so I was glad about it. We'll get to those things a little bit later. I'm just saying the optics of appearing twice on his show before mine, it did, I don't want to say it was disrespectful, but it definitely registered on a level of, okay.
Never again.
Never again. So right here, right now, I just want to make sure we get publicly stated that you will not appear on Ariel Helwani's show twice. The next time you win, before appearing on mine. Can we get that agreement now?
Deal. That's a deal.
All right, good. Because again, I'm sending you notes that I don't like sending, especially to friends of the show. I like you. I enjoy your mullet. I think that it is one of the most powerful mullets in all of MMA, and yet here we are having to spend the first few minutes talking about a
Yeah,
non-essential.
you're relentless, eh?
You know what it is that I feel like you're somebody, just the way that you carry yourself, who has an ear for the way that I treat some of my closer friends. So I know that I can give you shit and that it just kind of bounces off of you.
Yeah, we're cool.
So let me ask this. Obviously, you get this fight and it kind of came out of not the blue, but like we had done an interview and then maybe a week later or a very short time thereafter, they had announced that you were going up against Austin. What ran through your head the moment that they had sent that bout to you? What was kind of going through your mind as you get this kind of offer?
Yeah, it was crazy, man. Like it kind of happened. I mean, it all happened very fast, but like there was kind of some small increments that happened first. So the first thing was a phone call that was like, "Hey, man, were you serious about wanting that Vanderford fight?" And I said, "Yeah." And my management said, "Well, his opponent's out, so we're going to be putting your name in, so we'll be hearing back soon." And I was like, "Oh, damn, this could be real." And then a couple days goes by, and they say Vanderford accepted. I'm like, okay, that's the next step. And then next thing we're getting a contract. So man, it was pretty crazy. Like definitely one of the biggest moments of my life.
Obviously, those are good calls to get. Were you at a place where you were expecting a call? Because, you're also a very chill person. I see that when you have the time, you really do spend the time, with your friends and your family, and you try to live what isn't in an abundance kind of a way, but have a little bit of fun while still training very hard. So, what did it feel like in terms of in your mind for a camp and what you would feel comfortable putting together, especially when it's that quick of a turnaround?
Well, like you said, I'm always training hard, so it wasn't like I was like fucking around too much and getting fat or getting out of shape or anything. And it was long enough after the fight before that I was like pretty much back like full training camp mode, like waiting to hear something. So no, I was ready to go. I mean, sometimes you want more time to like game plan and work some specifics. But like I said in a bunch of my interviews before that one, he was like the perfect opponent for me. Like I trained with a lot of heavy wrestlers. I'm very confident in my defensive wrestling, so it was the perfect fight for me at that time.
I want to compliment you too, because obviously the before and after the way you conduct yourself, you're a very reputable guy. You're very respectable to your people that you're fighting, but it's so easy to take the negative headline on that guy. And you didn't take any of the bait. And at the very beginning, the way you conducted yourself, you're like, "This is a great opportunity. It's going to be a good fight. We'll see what happens." And I'm very confident that I'll be able to carry out the dub. You get the dub, and then you have every moment to just go full heel. And instead, you're like, why do we keep calling this guy Mr. Page Van Zandt? Kind of thing where you had this opportunity when somebody was kind of down and you made sure to give him his shine as well. And I know that some people could see that as, oh, well, that only reaffirms how good your win is. It didn't seem like that. It came more as a genuine, like, hey, I just want to make sure I make this statement about the way he is perceived and the way that the internet carries him. So, what prompted that? Because you almost could have no sold it and not even talked about him, but it seemed like
Mhm.
you made that part of the very first part of the talking points that you were doing when you had the post presser.
Yeah, I mean, it's offensive to both of us to make it seem like he's just some bum who's only famous because of Paige. Like the headline saying, basically, some dude knocked out Paige Van Zandt's boyfriend. Like, again, it's offensive to both of us. So that sucks. But dude, that totally backfired too. Like, I talked about it on Ariel's show, and that was kind of like the headline that they released. And all the comments under that video were just like so much more shit talk. Like, I just stirred the pot and made it so much worse by trying to be a nice guy and like give him his props.
It's so funny because knowing you before Ariel, let's make sure we get that on public record. Knowing you, I just thought to myself, I said, I don't understand how somebody could still slant this uptake, this very, very nice and very almost unnecessary step of speaking so well about an opponent and still spin it as some kind of asshole thing. To me, it was like, I saw your intentions, I saw what you were saying, and it just spoke so well of your character. And it's always nice when I see fighters that I know and who I interview, I see them be themselves in a moment that is really big to them. So I wanted to compliment you on that. Let's talk a little bit about the actual fight itself. What did it feel like? Because again, I know it was such a quick thing to put together. Take us through what it felt like to get that travel in and to actually make it to the venue, and what was going through your mind as you were starting to show up for what is kind of an epic week of media week, and it's almost as lengthy as the amount of time I'm sure you end up really getting in that fast turnaround of a time.
Yeah, like I said, there was like a few steps that happened like before we signed the contract, just like getting word of his opponent being out, and then him accepting the fight, and then Bellator has to make sure they want to do it, and then we get the contract, and then next thing we know, we're like booking our plane tickets and figuring out when we're leaving. I don't have my medicals done, so Bellator had to fly me in early, so I went in there on the Sunday. Our travel was actually kind of fucked up too. One of our flights got delayed, and we had like a very short time to connect, so we thought we were going to miss that. We almost didn't go for our first flight because they said, just wait, we'll get you here tomorrow instead. And then like 2 hours before my flight, they're like, hey, never mind, actually, can you go get on that flight? So I'm like, fuck, I threw all my shit in a suitcase. We got out of here quick and made it there pretty smoothly. And then got all my medicals done while I was there. And then, yeah, like you said, there was a bunch of media, probably more than I've ever done before. Weight cut, weigh-ins, mock weigh-ins, all that shit. So it was a crazy week, man. And then obviously the fight and everything afterwards. So, yeah, like a lot of things changed for me in a very short period of time.
As they should. I knew you would embrace the moment, make the moment really last. And it's always funny because, especially when you see how people conduct themselves in those big moments, you were just so chill. And I think that's even more endearing because you totally walked out. If you were a serial killer, we wouldn't know the difference because you would have just been like, hey, yep, that was fun. Cool. All right, let's get back to it. So to me, I just said, oh, that's very much Aaron. So that's pretty cool. I would ask this because I will get to the fight in a second. But because you packed everything into a suitcase, did you end up forgetting anything in that time? Is there anything that when you got to the venue that you go, ah, shit, I didn't pack that?
I don't think so. I pretty much live out of a suitcase. Like we spoke about my road trips and stuff before. So usually all my shit's pretty much packed. Maybe there's just like a few extra things I had to toss in there. So that was good.
Just making sure, because there's never a time, because sometimes I overpack, but there's never been a time where I've gone on a trip where I'm like, oh, I should have brought that, or oh yeah, I forgot this. So to hear that you are ready at all times, it is very nice that you probably have a suitcase just somewhere over in the closet ready to go at any time for these special occasions.
As a fighter, there's like three things that you put on your list that are like the only three necessities for the fight trip. It's cup, mouth guard, shorts. If you get there with those three things, you're good.
That is technically the uniform that you kind of need.
That's all you need. I could forget anything else, and that would be okay as long as I got my cup, mouth guard, and shorts.
I mean, I would maybe consider packing some underwear as well. That might
you can
be
always put that stuff there.
You could. I'm just saying, sometimes you got to break it in and feel comfortable.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been somewhere and bought, like, if you buy the undershirts, like if I buy them Mexican and I wear them and they're not broken in a certain way, I'm like, this feels weird. So I'm just saying, I want you to feel you're most comfortable.
I would rather deal with like some shitty clothes on fight week versus like a cup that's not fitting you, or one of those like mold it yourself mouth guards or something.
When you say mold it yourself mouth guards, do you have a particular mouth guard, or do you have something that you've just picked up somewhere?
I have like a dentist one, so it just like fits very snugly, and I've been using the same one for years, so it feels right. I have like backup ones, and they just don't feel the same, so I can throw you off.
Good to know. I really like the idea of you give new meaning to the word travel light. So getting to hear that is quite wonderful. All right, let's talk a little bit about the fight. You know, it's pretty short. We're going to do another segment where we break it down. But in general, is there anything that kind of surprised you in terms of how it went? Because I love when I get to talk to people after the fact because everybody can say like, "Oh, it went well." I mean, I wasn't surprised, but it did go fairly quickly. So we got the outcome we wanted in less than about 90 seconds, which
Hmm.
is ideal. So what if anything seemed unexpected in your opinion?
I didn't expect it to be that fast. I mean, a lot of guys like O'Malley going into this weekend saying like, if it ends in the first round, I'm not going to be surprised. I think a lot of guys probably do think that way, but I thought this fight was going to be a grind. I thought I was going to have to wrestle him, defend a lot of shots, and like work hard and tire him out and maybe bring him to a decision. That was going to be my prediction, was that I was going to beat him in a decision, like a hard fought battle. Obviously, we don't get paid by the minute, so to get him out in 85 seconds or whatever it was is pretty sweet.
That's very nice. Obviously, we talk a little bit about the after, the post presser, where you say your spiel. Did you do anything to commemorate this? Because last time I talked to you about any kind of celebrations, and it seemed like you didn't do any. Are you allowing yourself to do any celebrations this particular time, though?
You mean right after the fight or like
You
the
can
weeks
tell me
after?
right after the fight or shortly thereafter when you get back home.
Right after the fight was the usual. I think I told you the same thing last time. Is the beers and pizza in the hotel lobby. That's usually how it goes. Um, it was actually very nice for this fight. My brother and his family were at my mom's place, and they're not there often. Like they're from like 17 hours up north. So I actually got to spend a whole week at home with the family and drink beers with my brother and just kind of chill. So yeah, that was nice.
That's awesome. See, I wish those things for you. Now, in this particular case, I always ask because it is important to me. Did you have any kind of selection of beer that won't offend me? Because I know the availability of beer in different locations. I have to know what beer did you end up choosing?
I probably didn't choose it. I'm sure it was my brother's choice. He's the beer guy. Um, Coors Banquet. I think I had some of those. I think I like those.
Okay. Again, it is still the most fascinating thing to me whenever people who are in very good shape talk about beers because there is a part of me that goes, if you have abs, I don't know how much I can vouch for you drinking. So sometimes when I see those things, I go, I don't know that he's going to have the best beer selection. So, of course.
How's Coors Banquet for beer selection?
Um, you know what,
Pretty
man?
low on the list.
It's not my top priority. Although I have to be honest with you, I'm kind of a planner. So if I were fighting and I were you, obviously I can't plan that. So I would have to find one of the people who I trust and I would have to say, hey, listen, it's up to you to find me a local beer or two that I can't get anywhere else and bring them to me as my post fight
Mm.
celebration. And believe it or not, one of the guys who I'm super close to, and again, do not fight, no interest, but one of the guys who would very likely be my MMA coach is a giant beer snob. So it would be a very tall task for him. And I think he knows that. Because even when we train, sometimes I'm like, yo, bring me a beer for the next fight thing that we do or whatever. And he really like, he gets into it. He makes like notes. He tells me, he's like, it's almost like a wine, a sum, when they come over and they're just like, this wine was brought to us over the charted seas. It has been aged for 8 years. And I'm like, all right, cool. Thank you, bro. Just
Yeah.
delicious. Yay. Because to
Yeah.
me, I just want the taste. I don't necessarily need all the extra stuff. It's
Yeah.
usually or So
That's one of the superstitions I have, though, is that I'm never buying booze for after the fight, before the fight.
That
because you
also
know what's
was
going to happen. It seems
fair.
like a premature celebration to go buy your booze before you fought. So I don't do that.
That's fair. That's always why you can have somebody who gets like a call, somebody who you go, up, he won. All right, bring the good stuff. Uh,
Yeah.
otherwise, I want to say that the beer you're drinking to celebrate your epic wins may be my consolation beer. So
Yeah.
just everybody drinks a little bit differently. So obviously that's good. You go on the Ariel Helwani show, you go back home, you got to spend some time. So let me get this straight. Because it was so fast, did you end up doing the interviews while you were with your family?
Yeah, actually, in that first aerial interview, I'm getting like shot at by water guns by my brother's kids, and I had to like change my location for the interview.
Did that happen on air?
Actually, no, that wasn't Ariel. That was James Lynch. That's who that one was. But yeah, that happened on air with James Lynch, and I had to like run away from these water gun shots as I was speaking to him.
That's pretty funny. Well, credit to James Lynch for getting that. I'm more mad that I have not seen that clip in rotation more because I would be
I'll
clipping the
send
shit
it to you
out of it.
after. It's pretty good.
But yeah, that's pretty funny. And I mean, the nice part for me is I always like when people take that time off and they get to recharge their batteries. When you do recharge your batteries, what are you kind of feeling right now? Because are you at that space where you immediately wanted to fight? Obviously, it's been some time since, and I don't see anything necessarily happening before the end of the year, but things can change. I know they just announced a big end of the year card over in a foreign location, but when you start to think of that, where are you mentally? Are you like, I could take a couple months before I would fight, or would you take another return fight like that quickly back to back?
No, I wanted to get one more in before the end of the year, but they said all the events were full. So it probably won't be till next year. I'm hoping early. I don't want to wait long, man. I wanna stay active while I can.
But it's so nice when you do end up beating somebody who was ranked number 2. And so one of the nice things that I saw about that was you were very quickly climbing the charts as recently as to number 6 on the rankings, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's very cool. Congratulations on that. Very, very well respected. So when you see something like that go up, what's your reaction? Do you find it first? Does somebody send it to you? Because I would imagine that's the type of thing somebody probably sends or gives you a call or a note about.
Um, that's a good question, actually. No, I think the first time it comes out is on Instagram. Bellator posts their rankings there. So like the second that comes out, there's going to be tons of people seeing it. Everyone's sending it. So my phone probably blows up at that point. So yeah, that's kind of surreal to see that.
And it's nice because I feel like within that progress marker, you went from not really being ranked to very quickly being in a conversation that can very much propel you in that division. So that's got to be dope to feel. And I can only understand why you would want to keep that momentum going, especially if you're
Uh,
healthy and you're working with these monsters in the room and doing your thing. So that is very, very cool and good to see. You also have been traveling a little bit. So have you had teammates that have been fighting since? Because I've seen you do some small cross countries. What have you been doing in terms of your travel lately then?
um, when did we speak? It was after my first fight, right? In
I
Bellator.
Yeah, I
That's when we
believe that was back
chat.
in July-ish.
Yeah. So I've been down to Florida. I think just the one time since then. I went down there for a month down to Killcliff now and trained with a bunch of those guys.
How was that?
It's sick, man. They're a very good gym, like tons of high level guys, lots of big guys, which is like kind of one of the main reasons why I need to try. Like I really enjoy traveling and doing the road trips and meeting people and getting different looks and whatever. But I don't have a ton of big guys at my gym here, so I kind of need to go and get those big bodies, and they're a great gym for that. Um, like between their Bellator, UFC, and ONE FC fighters, there must be like 15 or 20 like welterweights, middleweights, like heavyweights. So it's pretty solid.
That is cool. What did you take away most about that experience in terms of their gym? Because obviously it is bigger gents to be training with, but what was the atmosphere? Like, what are you taking away from that as somebody who kind of comes into that culture as a visitor for a little bit?
I've been to a lot of gyms now, like all over the place, California, Vegas, Florida, a bunch in Canada. Um, you train too, so I'm sure you would agree with this. There's like no secrets, man. Like the guys that are the best in the gym are the guys that work the hardest. They're there every day. They don't take significant amounts of time off. They're not like drinking every weekend. They're not eating shitty and staying up late or whatever. They're just the guys that are consistently there, like living the boring, monotonous lifestyle of going to the gym 6, 7 days a week.
Interesting. And you mentioned California. What gyms have you been out here to California that you've been impressed with?
It was a while ago, probably maybe like 8 years ago now. I don't even remember any of them. I bet if I looked at my phone and looked at like old pictures and shit, I could find them. I trained with Jeff Glover down there at his gym. I trained with Chris Lieben, whatever gym he was at.
I actually think you might have been at the arena in San Diego. Those two guys were probably there at that same time. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I might be completely off that. It also might be Victory, where Dean Lister was teaching at a certain point.
Victory sounds familiar, yeah. Lieben and Jeff Glover, were they at the same gym or different gyms? I want to say they were at different gyms. I don't know. It's been so long. Team Oyama, I was there briefly too, I think. But yeah, I drove down to San Diego from here, which is a long ass drive, obviously, and then drove up the coast and kind of just like found whatever gym I was near and like checked a bunch of them out.
That's really impressive, man. And, you know, I am very much an ambassador of Los Angeles. So I know those routes well. And in fact, when you mentioned that you drove from where you live, which is far, to San Diego, my thought is I sometimes won't even get in my car and drive 2 hours south to San Diego. Yeah. So that's a huge commitment. But there are so many good gyms, so many different places in small pockets that could be there. I would ask this because one of the things that we talked about in our last interview was that you had this Darce off with a fellow blue belt when you were a blue belt at the time. When you were working with Jeff Glover, I am just a little bit curious to wonder, were you working Darces with him? Because that is one of the best people to Darce with. And what was that experience like if it wasn't that?
I can't remember what we worked, man. It's been so long. And I'm not like a big jiu-jitsu guy either. Like I train it all the time, but I don't like watch the grappling scene or follow like who the top guys are and everything. I was actually talking about this the other day. I was like, yeah, I trained with Jeff Glover. I don't even know if this guy's like still around. Like, is he still one of the top guys? That's probably fucking insulting to him and like whoever else is in the sport. But no, I don't follow it. I don't even know what we did that day. Is he still around? He is, yeah.
He's still with us. He is alive. He's not competing regularly. He did retire from competition, but he still does a lot of commentary, and he's still of the scene. He's based out of Santa Barbara right now, and he actually puts on these events called Money Where Your Mouth Is, and they do it in an undisclosed location, and the guys who enter put up their own ante. And it's very like lo-fi, do it yourself. And a few of my homies have fought in it. Some have won, some have come back. But they do get, because Jeff is a old school pro wrestling fan, they do get like a miniature little championship belt. Like that's what they win when they win this thing.
That's
and
cool.
It's great. And one of my favorite things to do to some of those guys is when they win that and being like, well, you have to defend that. So next time we train, bring that. Because nothing would make me happier than to take that away from you. And I support Jeff. You know, we've done commentary a couple times in the past, and he's a very interesting and crazy guy. So that's why when you said you couldn't remember, I was like, well, you might have been around so much weed, even if you weren't smoking it, that it's very easy to forget exactly what happened right then and there.
No, I definitely remember him being like very weird, to say the least, when we trained. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a weird cat, but he is kind of one of those OGs of the sport who it's so wild. Like he has stories for days, and him and Pete the Greek sometimes just randomly end up at events. And every once in a while, we just like, I think one of the times we were at a random tournament here in SoCal, and we were just entering and exiting the bathroom at the same time. And right as we saw each other, like, hey, all right, later, man. And like walked our ways away. But Jeff is very much a riot. So I'm glad that you got to train with him. I know even if you don't remember it, it still is good. I do have questions though, because even though you say you don't train jiu-jitsu, I think there's some kind of trade-off, because when I see the clips of you wrestling, I think sometimes you don't even need it, because your ability to get up, like all the cage work shit that you post, I'm always so jealous of, because I go, I can't do what you're doing. Like, it is so good that, yeah, of course, you don't need jujitsu because you're able to just stand up.
Yeah.
So, what do you attribute that to? You know, where does that come from for you? And I do notice this for a lot of MMA fighters; they do have that innate ability in them, but everybody gets it from a different place. Where did that come from for you?
You know Andy Varela?
Yes.
I think that's how you say his name. Yeah, he competes a lot in jits and stuff. He posted a meme the other day that was fucking funny. It was like when you're trying to do grappling rounds with the MMA guys and they just keep fucking standing up. Yeah, I don't know, man. Because you guys like I do train jiu-jitsu, but jits guys are more willing to be on the bottom and work from there and shit. But you can't do it in MMA. Like you're there, you're losing 99% of the time. If you're on the bottom, even if you're working more than the top guy, you're probably losing. So you get on the bottom, you stand up. That's what you got to do. That's what we train, especially at our gym. Like I said, there's a lot of heavy top game wrestlers. So yeah, I guess over the years I've gotten good at just like standing the fuck up when you get put on the bottom.
And again, I just wondered if there was any particular person that helped to grow that. But yeah, you're right. A lot of times for MMA guys who I've trained with in the past, it's just something that's come over time.
Mm.
One thing that I do try to do, and I found that one of my training partners laughed a lot when we did this, is I will do standing rounds, but I can't rely on my jiu-jitsu. So we try to put on a clock, 2 minutes. It's literally not settling for the takedown. You really try to pin the shoulders to the mat, like firmly, so that you can actually say, like, this is control in jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
But you take away all your jiu-jitsu tricks. For me, that's pretty severe. And I wouldn't say my wrestling's great, but it forces me as an exercise to give up everything I'm good at. And I will tell you, when people take me down and they try and get my shoulders to the mat, they're not used to me going like, up, get to the side. And they kind of get like, damn, I didn't know you could play like that. I was like, well, the rules are different. If the rules were play off of guard, I would 100% just concede it and just like play from guard, and I'd feel pretty okay. But if you learn how to do that, I think it's an excellent exercise to do. And I encourage more and more jiu-jitsu people to do it, because I am more than willing to be bad at wrestling. But every once in a while, I'll do something in those like 10 minutes that we do that drill that I go, oh, I did a duck under? Yeah. Shit, didn't even know I could do that. All right, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, there's so much overlap, but like so much difference at the same time too, right? Like with jits and wrestling, there's so much overlap, but you put a wrestling guy in a jits room and he's getting choked unconscious like every other second, or you put a jits guy in the wrestling mats and he's getting fucking slammed on his head. But yeah, when they get good at both at the same time, like a good wrestler who learns like some basic jits is going to be very good.
Having said that, though, have you ever had coaches that come up to you and say like, hey, you're not allowed to wrestle up on this?
Yeah, we'll do specific stuff like that sometimes for sure, like guard retention drill or something like that. Like, don't get your guard passed.
Yeah, I have somebody who I work with pretty extensively, and because he's a very solid MMA fighter, and he likes to say, he's like, oh, nobody takes me down, nobody does this. I was like, cool, you play off your back now. And he's like, okay. And I was like, you can't wrestle, you have to actually sweep them. That's how you come up. And he goes, I would just stand up and then take them down. Yeah. I was like, yep, that's not what we're doing today. Yeah. I was like, your sweeps are shit, and let's work on that. So he very much does not like me when I do that. Come to find out, his main coach.
If you just stand up and take him back down, it doesn't count as a sweep?
No, because the purpose to me is we already know he can out wrestle them. Yeah. So if the purpose is he gets back up and he wrestles them down, congrats. We knew you could do that. But if he's just trying to hit a sweep from somebody playing inside of guard, or even from butterflies or De La Hiva or any kind of guard, and he can't finish that sweep, you look at it and you say, this is kind of a deficiency. Like, I'm not saying it's going to be your A game, but it's going to be the game we play today. And come to find out, his main coach did the exact same thing to him without even knowing. He just did it to him one day in a training session. He's like, "You'll love this." My head coach told me I had to do this today. I was like, "Ha, you suck. That's what you get." So I always enjoy playing that. I want to ask this because I know you went on Ariel's show to talk about Elias, and it was really crazy to all of us. None of us knew, and none of us were close to him in a way. But you posted these great things, these great memories. You're doing such an excellent job of keeping his memory alive. Do you have a particular memory that stands out to you because you've had some time to think about it? And I know sometimes those memories will pop into your head, but do you have any memories that kind of stand out to you as of recently that you've kind of like been like, oh, that was kind of a cool moment we had together?
Yeah, the last time I saw him, probably just like recency bias as well. But no, the last time I saw him was pretty nice. It was after my last Contender Series fight, um, and I lost, and we went back to somebody's house, and we were just like drinking and chilling and stuff, and I could tell like he legitimately cared so much that I didn't win that fight, and like he wanted me in the show so badly, and he was like so distraught about it. Like he wanted me to win that fight, and we were just drinking and eating pancakes and stuff. And then I think a few days later, we were in Vegas. We went to the buffet at the MGM Grand and ate a shitload of food and drank some beers. And I gave him a ride home, and he's like sleeping in the back of my van on the way home. So yeah, that was nice, and that was the last time I saw him. It was like just over a year ago. So yeah, that one sticks out for sure.
You know what struck me is we never knew him. I don't even know that one of our memes or two got to him, but I knew that I liked memeing him because he seemed like the kind of chill dude that also, much like you kind of have a sense of humor about like, hey, we're not being dicks about how we're doing this, but he had some of like the best hair in jiu-jitsu that he looked like one of those Vidal Sassoon models when he would be doing the hair blowing. And this is before he was the ring boy and all that sort of stuff. And I just go, he's really got a great sense of humor. He's playing into it. And that always spoke to me. Um, am I right on that perception? Because obviously the ring boy is a funny gag, and it was awesome for him to kind of stand up for the women in that way. But for you, do you have any moments where you kind of remembered like that sort of sense of humor? Because I was always wondering if that's what he was like.
Oh yeah, he's a very goofy guy. You ever see the video that I posted when I made that first post about him, of him combing his hair, looking at himself in the mirror? And he didn't know I was recording him, and he's combing his hair, and then he like points at himself like this in the mirror, and he's talking to himself, and he turns around and he sees me recording him, and he's like, ah, yeah, that was him all the time.
I also wanted to know what impressed you most about him as a fighter, because you wrote these nice posts, and I only get so much from what I read from them. And I feel like there's always a larger breadth of what a human is and the person who they can be. But for you got to see him in training rooms. What is something that people may not know about him as a fighter? Because he did reach very, very notable levels in MMA and endeared himself to a lot of MMA fans. But what impressed you as a fighter for him?
He was one of the toughest guys I've ever met, and you would never guess it by looking at him. And I'm sure a lot of fighters that were like lining up to fight him probably thought like, oh, he's just like a pretty boy. He's probably kind of a pussy. I bet I can make him break or whatever. But no, the guy had a set of balls on him, man. He trained so hard, didn't get tired. Like he was willing to take a beating or give a beating. Like he was tough, man. He was very tough. Um, when I was in Vegas, I think this was probably right before my Contender Series fight. He had been like partying and drinking and stuff for like a week straight, he said, and then he came to Vegas. Was like running on little sleep, probably wasn't in the best shape, like was out of camp, whatever. And Strickland asked him to come. Sean Strickland asked him to come spar with him at the PI. So he goes to the PI the next day on like no sleep, coming off a bender basically, and spars 3 rounds in the cage with Strickland.
Wow.
And not many guys will do that in like fight shape, and Elias is doing it coming off the couch.
I don't think I could spar or roll with Sean Strickland, period. So that's
Yeah, a lot of guys won't. They just refuse to. And Elias was like, "Yeah, you want to spar with me? Sure, I'll come."
That's really cool, man. And like I said, what was so nice about you making those appearances, I even saw you and our other friend Josh kind of on a Instagram. And it's
Hmm.
so funny because I didn't know what the topic was. And I think I had sent you a note afterwards, but I was so ready to roast you guys because we're both friendly with both of
Yeah.
you guys. And then I heard you started talking about Elias, and I was like, I'm gonna not do that now. That's not the right time. But I love the fact that you guys are making sure that people get to know what made him special and unique. And that's the best thing that you can ever do for your friends who aren't here to tell the story anymore. So I wanted to applaud you and commend you both for doing that, because I thought that was really unique and special. And getting to hear you talk about it was really, really cool.
Thank you. Yeah. Like I'm probably not going to go to my way to just be telling people these stories and stuff. But no, people ask and people want to know. So yeah, I'm definitely willing to talk about him because he deserves to have people know who he was.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's always funny because I think just the reserved way that you can be about certain things, and there are certain things that I tell people in my life. I'm very open about telling people about my training and the people who I work with and all that sort of stuff. But there are things that I keep very much that are just kind of between me and that person, where I'm like, oh, this is for air, this is for my crew.
Hmm.
So, you always want to protect those things and make sure of it. But it's always interesting because you do start to realize, especially as you get older and older, that sometimes people won't hear those stories. So I'm sure in the future, sometimes something will jog your memory and you may talk about it. And when I was younger, I didn't know what that would feel like. I didn't know if that would be a betrayal. But then I realized I was like, well, they don't know. So
Hmm.
it became more like, you know what? I'm comfortable telling this story about this person now, or this person needs to know this story, or this is a good story that they'll do. So I'm sure that will
Exactly.
come in waves. But even
Exactly.
the amount that you have done so far is just a wonderful continuation of who we thought he was, and getting to know a little bit more about what bonded you and him uniquely.
Hmm.
So that's kind of like really cool, and you don't always see that with a lot of fighters.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I'm glad you think so. I was actually just at like I don't even know what you call it. It was like a 40-day like celebration thing for him on the weekend, and his family was there. And I hadn't met them before, and they kind of said similar stuff. They saw my interview with Ariel, and they were very happy with it. So it's nice to hear that that people are enjoying these things that I'm saying about him.
Yeah, especially when it's the family involved, because it's always funny because to us, we know in our small little community, we always feel like, oh, this is just for MMA fans, but uh, you know, sometimes the MMA families they find out too. Uh,
Hmm.
there's a guy who I usually do these pro wrestling bits with, and I went to his. They had like a baby shower for the guys to come and crash it, and his dad comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, hey," and I go, "What's up?" He goes, "I think you're really nice. I don't know why my son picks on you," and I was like, "That's right." Your dude's 6'4" and 260 and trying to beat me up. And he's like, dude, Raf's the one that's picking on me. And I was like, you can't pick on somebody who's 6'4" and 260. That's not how that works. I can't bully you. That's not how it works. And he
Yeah.
looks at me and it's just like, I looked at the dad and I go, I think it's so funny. I forget that somebody else might be watching this outside of our brand
Yeah.
of idiots.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure to that family, they saw that interview, obviously very emotional in their time of grief and loss, and I'm sure a lot of those stories make them feel like, that's really cool that he's got a good
Uh huh.
friend.
Uh huh. For sure.
Let's talk a little bit of a couple quick things before we start to round the bases here. But before we start to call this, you're not probably going to fight. I mean, it looks like no. Bellator looks like it's pretty closed down for the year. With that in mind, how are you looking to close out the year? Is it just good training? How do you get around? I don't know exactly the dates for Canadian holidays at this point, but I do know that that sometimes impacts training, or even opens up new opportunities if you do travel. How are you looking to close out your 2022, sir?
Well, I got a big 30th birthday coming up, so kind of dreading that. I think my girlfriend has something planned for us. I'm not sure what yet, so we'll find out. Her birthday is also next month, so we got that. I'm going up to see my brother, who I spoke about earlier. We're going up north to visit him up in Thunder Bay. It's going to be cold and shitty, so that'll be fun. And then I think they're back down here for the holidays, Christmas with the fam. We're pretty big on Christmas, so yeah, lots of food and cookies and whatever. And then maybe towards the end of the year, like New Year's, I'll try and head down to Florida again, I'm thinking. Or if not by that point, then early next year for sure.
All right, I got to ask, why are you dreading 30, bro? You look great. You're at a great peak in your MMA career. What could possibly make you feel anxiety at 30, sir?
I don't know, man. It's a big number for whatever reason. It doesn't mean anything, obviously. Like I'm basically 30 now. Nothing really changes in a month, but yeah, for whatever reason, that number sounds scary.
As somebody who's 10 years past that, I think you'll be okay. Yeah. Let me see what I can remember about 30. 30, we did a nice little small thing at my family's place with some of my closest friends and family members there. And I gotta tell you, man, 30's still good. You haven't even truly hit your athletic peak. You're in good shape. Things are going very well at the job. So you've got really good things to be there. The weird part is that what I did tell people, and maybe this might be your case, I don't know, is that I was pretty ready for 30. It was everybody else being like, how you feeling about 30? And I go, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And that same conversation reared its ugly head at 40, where they go, how you feeling about 40? And I was like, well, I'm in better shape than I was when I was 30. So
yeah,
I'm pretty good. So I would say, I think you're going to be okay.
Okay. I hope so. I'll take your word for it.
You're more than welcome to ask me for any advice on what it feels like to get old, because I will continuously be older than you. I guess the other question I had in terms of a nonsensical question is, you do this a lot. Now, I can't do it the way that you do it, but this is the pose that you go with.
The tall flex.
Yeah, what is that? And why are you looking like a jacked up Diaz brother, like a kangaroo, getting up there?
It's a Diaz flex. I don't know. It's funny.
When did you start doing? Yeah, I see it. Look, you can pull it off. But I just wondered, where did that come from and when did you start doing that?
I don't know when I started doing it, but it just caught on. And then before I knew it, every picture I saw of myself was that pose. So I just kind of ran with it.
Because I will tell you this, and when you say you ran with it, you're not lying. I'm pretty sure every photo I see of you in every story or every team photo is of you doing the jacked up Diaz pose. And I laugh and I just think to myself, I go, it kind of completes the look, because the mullet, the little stash here, that to me says maybe you're a pitcher in the 80s on a baseball team. Then I see the pose and I go, nah, that's more the pro wrestler in him.
Yeah.
So I see that and I think to myself, okay, that's completing the look. But I had wondered if you would learn that from anything other than a Diaz brother. But I guess the question is, why do you continue to do it if it's so silly?
I don't know. Everything's a gimmick. Some catches on, people notice it, you keep doing it.
Well, I want to commend you for that, because I think it'll be very good. I just know that after we roll and I get you in a sharpshooter, that's going to be the first thing that I do.
Is that steal my pose?
Absolutely, man. Hey, listen, you said everything's a gimmick. That's exactly what the gimmick is. All right, sir. I'm going to give you an opportunity right now to go ahead and say any shout out that you want, anybody who's been helping you in training, obviously, for that big win. I want to give you the opportunity and the floor to give props to any of your sponsors as well, sir. The camera is all on you.
Yeah, I don't have much, man. My gym's here in Canada, Niagara Top Team, Aegis MMA, like all my coaches, training partners here. And then everyone down at Kill Cliff down in Florida. I feel like I've made kind of a second home for myself there. So I'm very thankful to all those guys as well. And thanks to you, man, again, for having me on the show.
Well, I appreciate you, dude. I appreciate you making the time. And I appreciate you for doing this next little segment that we're going to do here in a second. We'll film that in just a moment, but I'm going to close this bitch up and then we'll get to work on that. But my thanks to you, Aaron. You're good people. I love how good guy you are in terms of your sensibility, but also just a monster, dude. Nobody was cheering louder than your friends out here in California, because after we did our interview, a few of my homies go, "Hey, isn't that your guy who was in the thing?" I was like, "We just interviewed, yeah." And they're like, "And he's fighting Mr. Page," and I was like, "Yeah, he's fighting it, yeah." And then they watched it, and everybody got hype at my gym for you. So you had a nice little chapter here of SoCal that got behind you, but all respect due, man. Congrats. That was a really big moment, and I'm glad for you.
Thank you, man.
All right, I'll see you in a second. But for right now, my thanks to all of you for watching. Here's a couple quick reminders. One, like, share, subscribe, all that good jazz. Also, reminder, follow us at Grappling Hour on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. Also, you can become a member of the Grappling Hour family and get early access to our interviews just like this 30 days before anybody else. Or you can see that very exclusive technique breakdown that we're going to do right now. We're going to film it, and that is only for our premium members. And you can find both of those at HY.PAGE/Grappling Hour. That's going to do it for right now. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. It's been a great day for grappling. We'll see you back on the mats.